This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Baruch Hashem, we're all here, Gesundheit, for a new season of Shiurim. We start with Parshas Noach, and we all think we learned the story before. We think we know it. We have it down pat. The robbery, the stealing, they're rotten. Hashem tells them go into the ark, bring in all the animals, the mabul, they come out, the rainbow, we have it down pat. We even know about the dove and the raven and the olive branch. This story we think we have down pat. Rabbi, I guarantee you after tonight we have a new understanding of one of the most basic episodes in all of Chumash. And the Torah tells us like this. We know the Noach, he's in the teva, it's raining, it's pouring, but there's no snoring for Noach, right? Noach is up all night long. He's feeding the different animals. Even one time, we all remember, the lion came. Noach didn't feed the lion on time. The lion bit Noach, right? And Noach's coughing up blood. He's having a hard time on the teva, but he handles it really well. In fact, it's brought down in the Sefer Tashbetz that, when Noach and his sons were on the teva with all the animals and all the garbage, they developed all types of diseases. So the Malachim came down and taught them the Sefer HaRefuos, the famous Sefer HaRefuos. The Malachim taught Noach and his sons when they were on the teva. But be it as it may, Noach wants to find out when is it finally going to stop. So who does he send out first? The raven. A raven? Why would Noach send out a raven? Well, you know what a raven does? A raven is a bird of prey. If a raven sees a dead carrion on the side, right? Well, if your car bangs into a deer, while you're driving up to the Catskills, when nobody's looking, the raven comes down and pounces. You don't see that a raven. I mean, why, of all the animals, ravens don't fly that well anyway. Why would Noach send out a raven? And then, after the raven doesn't want to listen to Noach, what does Noach do? Look in number 1. Noach sends out the Yonah, and the Yonah has no place to rest. The pasuk says before, "V'lo matza hayonah monach lekaf ragla," and the Yonah, the dove, returns to Noach. And then the pasuk says like this: Pasuk Yud Aleph. Noach waits another 7 days. V'atava elav hayonah liyes erev. The Yonah comes back in the evening. V'hine alei zayis taraf b'fiyah, and there's an olive branch in its mouth. Why is the Yonah coming back in the evening? What was it doing the whole day? It was going bowling, golfing? What took so long? You think the Yonah was flying for 11 hours straight until it found an olive branch? Come on. It says it came back in the evening. What was it doing until then? And an olive branch? You ever seen an olive tree? Is an olive tree a very tall tree? Not a very tall tree. I could think of 50 types of trees that are taller than now. You have a maple, you have an evergreen, you have the redwoods. So what does the Yonah come back with? The olive tree? The olive tree is a shvacha tree. Why would it take the olive? And the olive is the most bitter tree. Why would the Yonah take an olive branch? Come back with something sweet, something that's fragrant, something that's aromatic. An olive branch? Why an olive branch? Anyway, Noach understood that the water began to subside. Okay, Noach waits another 7 days. He sends out the dove. Now look at these words. So these words got me thinking. It never returned to him again. Right? A very dramatic word. Shuv, Elav, Oid. It never returned to him again. Just say it didn't come back. V'lo shav Elav. It never ever again, right? Yasva, Shuv, Oid. It almost implies it never returned to him, but it will come back for somebody else. What's the Torah trying to say? Says the Zohar HaKadosh. Ready for this? Zohar HaKadosh, Parsha Shlach. When the Torah says the dove didn't return, where did he go? Where is the dove right now? That dove, that infant, that famous dove. The dove of Yonah. Where is he? Well, he's advertising for soap bars. Where is that dove? Oid lo yada barnash la'an. No one knows where that dove is. Azlas. V'hi tavas liyasra, went back to its place. V'izganizas, it's hidden. V'pischa, and it's opening. Da. V'iyu titel atara b'puma, it has a crown in its mouth. Whose crown? V'tashavi al reishe de malka Mashiach. It's going to put the crown on Mashiach when Mashiach comes. Hear what the Zohar is saying. Where did the dove go? Nobody knows. What's he doing? He has a crown in his mouth. Who's he going to put it? Where is he going to put it? On the head of Mashiach. Well, I mean, I think the dove's getting a little ahead of itself. It's waiting for Mashiach. You got a messianic dove over here. First of all, there's no Klal Yisrael. There's no Torah. There's no Mashiach. There's no. I mean, we just had a mabel. Could we dry ourselves off before you're thinking about Mashiach? Could we, get me a towel? Could we get the land, solid first before you start worrying about Mashiach? Could we get maybe one Jew? Could Avraham Avinu walk the planet before we worry about Mashiach? No, the dove can't wait. The dove is prepared with the crown of Mashiach. And the Zohar continues in nice Kuf Nun. What does an olive branch have to do with David? David in Tanakh is called Zayis Ra'anan, the ever-fresh olive. Like David himself says about himself, Ani Kazayis Ra'anan. So the Ale Zayis, the leaf of the olive, is the son of David, the Mashiach himself. The Malka Mashiach Breda David. That's a reference to Mashiach. So when the Torah says the Yonah has the leaf of an olive in its mouth, it means he's holding on to the crown of Mashiach. So what's this all about? Why is this olive? Why is this Yonah? Why is this dove even thinking about Mashiach? Let alone, why are we designating this dove? Again, what did the dove set out to do? He wants to know, is the land dry? So, there are a lot of steps in between the land being dry and Mashiach coming. We need 10 generations from Noach to Avram. We need another many generations until the Torah is given. You need David to come. We're talking 1,000 years, 2,000, 3,000 years. No, there's one thing on the mind of the dove. The dove is waiting to crown Mashiach. What does the mission of the dove, who's setting out to see if the land is dry, have to do with the crown of Mashiach? In fact, the Rabbi Koshmi Kamarna, he brings a very interesting remez. The words Taraf Befiha is Begamatria David ben Yishai. Or other gematrias that are involved over here. Zayis is Begamatria Adam David Mashiach. We know David HaMelech, Adam stands for Adam, David, Mashiach. The word Adam stands for Adam, David, Mashiach. That's what the Arizal writes. So the word Zayis is Begamatria Adam, David. So we have all these ramazim that this was a very hopeful dove. This dove, don't bother me with anything else. Don't bother me with soap bars. I have one thing on my mind. The crown of Mashiach is in my mouth. I'm ready to crown Mashiach when he comes. Why? Why is he preparing for Mashiach? Why is this mission of the dove, seeing if the land is dry, what does that have to do with Mashiach? Comes the brisker Rav. Okay, we're taking a 90-degree turn left. Or right, whatever direction. Says the brisker Rav. Why is Noach sending out these animals? Presumably, he wants to see, is the earth dry? Why does he want to know if the earth is dry? Because he wants to know when he could leave the teva. Ask the brisker Rav, wait a second. Even after the earth is dry, does Noach leave the teva? No. You look in Parak Ches, Pasuk Yadalit, it says in the second month, the 27th of the month, the land is dry. What does Noach do? He's sitting on the teva. He doesn't go anywhere. What happens? Hashem speaks to Noach. He says, Noach, same in teva, go out. You, your wife, your sons, the wives of your sons, leave. So why does Noach need a command to leave? If the land is dry, let him go out on his own. The answer is Noach is a Baal Derech Eretz. You ever hear this concept? It's called manners. Very interesting concept, manners. Manners are like this. If you're in a place where somebody is greater than you, you're not allowed to leave unless they give you permission. Right? So when did Noach go into the teva? When it started raining? No. When Hashem said, you may enter. So Noach entered when God said, you may enter. Noach is not leaving until God says you may leave. But what am I doing in here? It's not raining outside. It doesn't matter what you're doing in here. When you go into someone's house, you don't tell the person, oh, I'm ready to leave now. You'll leave when he gives you the signal. That's common, that's derech eretz. It's derech eretz in normal human interaction, and it's Torah derech eretz. You don't leave unless you get permission. In fact, the Medrash tells us, look at number 7, that on the 4th line, Amar Noach, Kishem shalei nechnasti bateva, the same way I didn't enter the teva ela b'rshus, only with permission, kach ein ani yotzei ela b'rshus, so too, I'm only going to leave with permission. So Noach's not going anywhere. It doesn't matter if it doesn't rain for the next 30 years. He's staying in the teva till God tells him to go. Noach himself said, I'm not going anywhere until God tells me to go. Right? You go to a shiur. You don't throw the sheet back and you leave when you want. We'll let you know when you could go. Right? Well, but, in any event, Noach is not going anywhere until the Rebbeinu Shalom says, you could leave. So why does he need to know when the rain is going to stop? For what purpose? Oh, because if the rain stops, probably the command of Hashem will be coming soon. He'll find out when Hashem's command. What, it's going to speed up when Hashem commands him if he knows when the rain is going to stop? I mean, what does Noach need to know for? He's not going anywhere until Hashem tells him. Right? There's a story about Rabbi Lapian. There's once waiting at a bus stop, and he went to the street to look if the bus is coming, and then he got angry at himself. He said, why am I looking? The bus will come when it's here. Why am I exerting, what, the bus is going to come faster? It's like, I go to the elevator, right? It's already going up, but I press the button 3, 4, 5 times. What? For what? Noach doesn't do that type of thing. Noach is not just out of curious, just want to know when's the rain going to stop. So therefore, the Asa Brisker of, why is Noach, for what benefit is there for Noach to find out when the rain is going to stop? And even more difficult, you ready for this? This is going to crack things open a little bit. Ask the Brisker of, is Noach allowed to leave before he's given permission? No. He's not allowed to leave. Are the animals allowed to leave before God gives the animals permission to go? No. Because Hashem tells Noach, you could leave the teva, you, your wife, your sons, your daughters-in-law, and all the animals could leave, which implies, before God gives permission to the animals to leave, they're not allowed to leave. Ask the Brisker of, how was Noach allowed to send out the raven and the Yonah? It's against the desire of Hashem. They're not allowed to leave until Hashem tells them they can. So for Noach to send out the Yonah and the Oirev, it's against the tzivay of Hashem. Now, what's the punishment of somebody who violates the command of Hashem before the Torah was given? It's Chayv Misa. So aside from the fact that why does Noach need to know when the rain's going to stop, what he's doing is an Isser Dairaisa. We think, oh, what a very nice thing, he wants to know when the punishment's going to stop. Actually, he wasn't allowed to do that. That's the question of the Brisker of. How was Noach allowed to violate the desire of Hashem? And that is, you can't leave until I tell you. Comes in a Tziv, and then the Tziv wants to know, number 1, why would Noach send out a raven and a pigeon? There are many birds that fly a lot better than ravens and pigeons. I'm not a bird expert, but I could imagine that the raven and the pigeon are not necessarily known for their flight, their successful and excellent flight skills. So why Dafka? Why specifically the raven and the pigeon? And number 2, Noach had no permission to send out these animals. God let him know when he could leave. So how is Noach allowed to send out these animals? Says in a Tziv, you ready for this? Noach was commanded, take 7 pairs of kosher animals, bring them into the table. Bring 1 pair of treif animals into the table. Bring you, your wife, your sons, your wives into the table. But Noach is saying, I'm not a Jew yet, I'm a guy. And every guy has pets. A guy has pets. A dog, at least a dog. A bird. Right? So what about my pets? So God says, I said you and your household. The dog's part of the household. Says the Netziv, throughout Shas we find that the prototypical pets were the raven and the pigeon. Whenever you see pets in Shas, it's always a pet raven and a pet pigeon. Like the Gemara in Shabbos, Daf Kuf Chav Ches. So when Hashem said, you and your sons and their wives and your household, so we maybe would bring in the fish tank. Noach brought in the Yonah and the Orev. So therefore, you're right, Noach had no permission to send out any of the assigned animals out of the teva. Because those animals were given specific command to be brought in, and specific command to when to let them out. But the pets, they were free agents. The pets of Noach, they were free agents. They were not governed by the precise dictates of when to come in and when to leave. So Noach figured, pet raven and pet Yonah, I'm going to use you to see when things are going to stop.
Since they are pets, and part of his household, so as the whole household, as his sons or his daughters were not allowed to leave, so they also could.
So Reuven is asking a very good question, that why aren't they governed by the laws of the household, the same way the household came in at an exact time and left at an exact time? So if they're subsumed under the household, they should be governed by the same laws, right? I was bothered by the same question. I don't have a good answer to that. But that is what the Netziv says, that they were not part of the regular command. Good. And therefore he sent them out. So first he sent out the raven. The raven, they can't fly. What are ravens good for anyway? They can't really fly too far. So he sent them out. The raven didn't go anywhere. So then Noach sent out his Yonah, his messenger birds. Fine. And with this, the Netziv explains a very interesting Gemara. You ready for this Gemara? The Gemara Masechta Bava Basra says there was a famine. And we know who was a very wealthy person in the time of the Mishnah. In fact, probably the wealthiest Jew. Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi. Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi had close ties with Antoninus, with the Roman emperor. And Rabbi Yehuda opened up his storehouses. But he made the following condition. He said, if you know Chumash, I'll feed you. You know Mishnah, I'll feed you. You know Gemara, I'll feed you. But if you're an Am Haaretz, go starve. Go starve. Why? Because Rabbi was of the opinion that all tragedy comes to the world not because of Goyim, because of Jewish Amaratzim. Jews who don't know Torah. That was the opinion of Rabbi. And the Rebbe held very steadfast to that principle. And if Am Haaretz came to Rebbe said, I love you, man, but sorry, you can't eat anything. I have to reserve this for people who know Torah. Chumash, Mishnah, Gemara. And Rebbe had a great Talmud. His name was Rabbi Yonasan ben Amram. And Rabbi Yonasan ben Amram comes to Rebbe. He's dressed up like a regular person. He doesn't want to use his Torah knowledge as a way to get fed. So he says, Rebbe, feed me. Rebbe says, you know any Chumash? He says, no. You know any Mishnah? He says, no. So Rebbe said, how do you want me to feed you? So he says, feed me like a dog and a raven. Rebbe gave him to eat. After he left, Rebbe had chalisha sadas. Rebbe was distraught. How could I violate my principle to feed someone who doesn't know Torah? Rebbe was very, very upset until he found out that it was none other than his Talmud, Rabbi Yonasan ben Amram, who did not want to get pleasure from his Torah knowledge. Says Rashi, what did Rabbi Yonasan ben Amram mean? Feed me like a dog and a raven. What was that supposed to mean? Feed me like a dog and a raven. Says Rashi, you know what he meant? He meant like this. Hashem has big rachmanis on dogs. Hashem has a lot of mercy on dogs. Why? Because dogs, very hard for them to get a decent meal. If you would be a dog roaming the street, very hard to find something good to eat. Unless, of course, you're the butcher's dog. But if you're not the butcher's dog, very hard to get something to eat. So you know what Hashem does? Hashem has rachmanis on the dog. And He makes it that whatever a dog eats, it's churning in the stomach for 3 days. Because you never know when's the next time the dog's going to get something to eat. And you know what Rabbi Yonasan ben Amram meant? Feed me like a raven. The raven is the cruelest of all the animals. It's so cruel that when it gives birth, when the raven gives birth to a baby raven, and the baby raven is crying out, I want something to eat. The mother says, I don't want to look at you. The mother doesn't give it any milk. The mother doesn't feed it at all. The mother says, go die. So what does Hashem do? The first time the raven eliminates waste as a young bird, the worms come to the excrement, and the raven subsides on the worms of its own excrement. That's how a raven survives. So Rabbi Yonasan ben Amram is saying, to Rebbe is, you don't want to feed me? God even has mercy on the dog and the raven. So have mercy on me. Asked the Netziv, that's what Rabbi Yonasan ben Amram meant? To understand what he meant, you have to be a world-class Talmid Chacham. You have to know this whole thing that the dog doesn't have what to eat, and Hashem makes the food stay in its stomach for 3 days, and the mother raven doesn't feed its young, and therefore their worms come. Rabbi Yonasan ben Amram is basically saying to Rebbe, I'm a big Talmid Chacham, feed me. But he's trying to hide it. What did he mean? Feed me like a raven and like a dog. Ah, very good, Isaac. What he meant to say is, Rebbe, you're a wealthy guy. Who chases the rats out of your driveway? The raven. Rebbe, who chases the cats out of your backyard? The dog. You give them to eat, or you say, oh, you don't know Shas, I'm not going to feed you. You have Rachmanis on your pets, right? So feed me like a raven and a dog. Feed me like your pets. That's what he meant. So why did Rebbe feel bad that he fed him? Because, what was Rabbi Yonasan ben Amram saying? He was saying, I'll be your raven, I'll be your dog. I'll move into your driveway and I'll chase away the rats. I'll chase away the cats. And the next thing Rebbe knows, Rabbi Yonasan ben Amram is nowhere to be seen. He was in the Beis Medrash. Rebbe didn't know where he was. So how could Rabbi Yonasan ben Amram lie to Rebbe? Because what Rabbi Yonasan ben Amram really meant is what Rashi says. What he really meant was, have mercy on me like God has mercy on the dog and God has mercy on the raven. But what he wanted Rebbe to think was feed me like your pet. But in any event, that is how the Netziv understands why Noach was authorized to send out the raven and the pigeon. It's because these were his pets. Okay, let's continue a little bit. Says the Chizkuni, one of the classic Rishonim, you know why Noach sent out a raven? Because the raven is a bird of prey. Noach figured that the raven would come back. What's floating on top of the water now? All the dead people who died in the Mabel. So now this is something for the raven to feast on. So why did he send out the raven? He figured if the dead bodies are still floating on the water, the raven would come back with, a piece of flesh, a piece of basar from these people, from these Meisei Hamabel. TorahAnytime HaKadosh has a very interesting diuk, very interesting observation on these psukim. Take a look if you have a Chumash, in Parak Ches, Pasuk Zayin. It says, Vayishalach es ha'orev, he sent the raven. The Pasuk does not identify why he sent the raven. And then in the next Pasuk, Vayishalach es hayoino, he sent the dove, Lirois hakalu amayim, to see if the water subsided. Why doesn't the pasuk identify the reason why Noach sent the raven? By the raven it just says he sent it. By the dove it says he sent it. Why? To see if the water went down. Why doesn't the Torah identify the reason he sent the raven? It says the TorahAnytime HaKadosh that when Noach was on the Teva, he was prohibited from having marital relations. Because when the world is in distress, it's not proper to be engaged in that type of activity. He had to commiserate and empathize with the situation the world was in. Noach was asur b'tashar shamita. And not only Noach, all the animals. It wasn't permitted for them. There were 3 individuals who violated this law. Number 1, the raven. Number 2, the dog. Number 3, Chum, the son of Noach. Chum. Ham. Not ham, hum. Okay. So, says TorahAnytime HaKadosh, you know why the Torah doesn't identify why Noach sent out the raven? Because he didn't send it on a mission. He banished the raven from the Teva. He said, get out of here. You're out. You violate the rules, you're out of here. Goodbye. So the Chassam Sofer asked, so why didn't he banish the dog and Chum? Because where's he going to put them? In the Mabel? Right? Were they going to swim in the boiling hot water? Dogs don't really swim. They trick you, that dogs know how to swim. Right? They're going to send the dog out of the Teva. You're going to send Chum into the Mabel, into the Atlantic Ocean. Come on. But the Orev, it wouldn't be a sakana. He sent him out. He banished. The Yonah he sent out for a reason. The Orev he banished. He didn't send out. He banished. Okay. Perhaps that's why he was authorized to. He was saying, get out of the teva. You violate the rules, you're out. Okay. Now, very interesting. Look at number 15. Rashi says about the raven, the Chumash says that the raven was going yatzai halach v'shayv. It was going back and forth. It did not go out on its mission. Right? Very interesting. The raven would not listen to Yonah. Yonah says, you're out of here. The Orev would not go and fly. It was just circling the teva. Halach v'shayv. Ad yavosh hamayim. It would not move from the teva until the water dried out. That's the simple meaning. But Rashi brings down a Medrash Agada that the Orev says, I'm not listening to you. I am prepared to go out on a different mission in the time of Eliyahu Hanavi. So now just think for a moment. Right? We're talking, the Mabul was in the year, in the 1600s, right? In the 1600s of the creation of the world. The Torah was given in 2448. 40 years in the Midbar. Before they built the first Beis HaMikdash, they're in Eretz Yisrael for 440 years. So we're talking, more than 1,000 years later. The Orev said, I'm not listening to you. I am preparing myself for another mission in the times of Eliyahu. Eliyahu goes to Achav. He says, Achav, you built Yerichai. You're going to die. Your kids are going to die. There's going to be famine. So the problem is, if there's going to be famine, what's Eliyahu going to eat? So the ravens came, brought food from the kitchen of Achav, and fed Eliyahu Hanavi. Very interesting. The raven said, Noach, I'm not going to listen to you. Instead, I'm going to wait 1,000 years flying around until I could feed Eliyahu Hanavi. So Maral asks, Vasapis, why is it that the Orev would not listen to Noach, but he would listen to feed Eliyahu Hanavi? Why is Eliyahu better than Noach? Says Maral like this. The raven is the cruelest of all the animals. Right? You ever see there are different kinds of people. There's some kind of people. Hey, did you hear the news? You heard who died? Right? There's always the people, you can always count on them to let you know who died. Right? They like to give bad reports. They're always the carrier of, when you want to hear bad news, you know who to go to. And there's some people, you're not going to hear anything like that from them. You'll hear it from other people. They like to say good news. The raven is so cruel, he doesn't like to be sent on any good missions. So when Noach says, let me know when the Mabul is over, the raven said, that's not my kind of job. I don't give those kind of reports. I don't give good tidings. But in the time of the famine, when Eliyahu told Achav, there's going to be famine, and Hashem was saying, we can't bring famine until we figure out a way to feed Eliyahu. The raven said, oh, you want to bring famine? I'll take care of that job. You send me to feed Eliyahu. But Rabbi say, we're still far from understanding. Why does Yonah want to know exactly when the Mabul will be over? He can't leave anyway until God tells him to. And number two, how's he allowed to do it? Comes along the Paneach Raza. Paneach Raza was one of the Rishonim, who was the master of the Ramazim of the Torah. It's interesting, the Chidah writes that Paneach Raza was written by a Rishon by the name of Rabbeinu Yitzchak. What's the gematria of Yitzchak? 208. 208. Rabbeinu Yitzchak wrote a sefer Paneach Raza. Paneach is 208. Raza is 208. Says the Chidah, Rabbeinu Yitzchak didn't even know what the hashkacha would be from naming his sefer Paneach Raza. Because later, hundreds of years later, Rabbeinu Yitzchak, another Rabbeinu Yitzchak, the son of the Maral Prague, would write notes on the Paneach Raza. So he called it Paneach Raza, thinking Paneach is Yitzchak, Raza is Yitzchak, but he didn't even realize the one who authored the explanation of his own sefer was also Yitzchak. So one Yitzchak was for Paneach, one Yitzchak is for us. He quotes Rabbeinu Yehuda HaChassid, Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid, who asks, why is Noach sending out animals when the Mabul will be over? What, Noach doesn't believe God? God says, I'm going to get you out of here one day. What's he sending out messengers for? Listen to this. Noach is spending the entire year feeding the animals, yeah? How much is he giving them to eat? Single portions, double portions, a big scoop, an overflowing scoop, army portion. How much is Noach giving the animals? What if the lion said, Noach, just a little extra helping of mashed potatoes, a little more today? What's Noach going to do? Noach says, sorry, I don't know how long we're going to be here for. I know this sounds a little cruel, Noach says, but we gotta be a little stingy because we don't know how much food we need. So Noach was always very careful to give them very sparing portions. He was very sparing in what he gave them because he had no idea how long he was going to be there for. But Noach was a Rachaman. He didn't want to be an Achsar on the animals. So he sent out the Yonah and the raven to find out when the Mabul would be over, maybe give the animals a little extra food. Okay, so now we know what the motivation of Noach was. But we still don't know how he was allowed to do it. Comes a Chassam Sofer and he cracks open the whole episode. Ready for this? Ask the Chassam Sofer the following question. The question the Brisker Rav asked. The question the Netziv asked. And look at number 18. Chassam Sofer ala Torah, Parshas Noach, Amud Chav Tes, number 18 on the 5th line. Hine HaKadosh Baruch Hu tziva l'chol balei chayim sheyichnesu b'teim. God commanded all the living creatures to enter the teva. V'lo haya lohem reshus latzeis. They had no permission to leave. Kiyim bershus Hashem Yisbarach, only with the permission of Hashem. Like the pasuk says, after the land dried out, Hashem came to Noach and said, now you can leave. V'im kain l'chayra hadinim ha'orev. It would seem the raven was right. When Noach says to Raven, leave, the Raven says, how could I leave? God said we're not allowed to leave. Who do you think you are, Noach? The Rebbeinu Shalom said we can't leave until Hashem gives permission. Says the Chassam Sofer, it would seem if we had to paskin between the Orev and Noach, the Orev was right. Says the Chassam Sofer, Ach Noach yada sheyesh koyach biyad chachomim lakar davar min haTorah. You ready for this one? We know that if Rosh Hashanah comes out on Shabbos, that even though the Torah says blow shofar, the rabbis say don't blow shofar. Even though the Torah says if Sukkot comes out on Shabbos, take the lulav and esrog, the Chachamim say don't. How do the rabbis have the right to do that? The Chachamim have the right to say, be passive and don't fulfill what the Chumash says. What do you mean? The Chachamim have the right to go against Hashem? Yes. If God says, take the shofar and blow it, Hashem entrusted to the Chachamim to say, don't do it. But only b'shev al tasa. Only if they're telling you not to do something that the Torah tells you to do. To sit back passively and not fulfill what the Torah tells you to do. But to the Chachamim have the right to say that which Hashem told you not to do, you could do? Hashem said don't eat ham. Could the Chachamim say eat ham? Yes. As a one-time measure. As a Hayra Asha. For example, who did that? Eliyahu Hanavi on Har HaKarmel. Even though you're not allowed to bring offerings outside of the Mikdash, Eliyahu Bahar HaKarmel offered Kodshem Bachot. Could you do it permanently? No. Permanently, you can only do it passively. B'shav al tam. Permanently, you can't actively violate the Torah, only as a one-time measure. So the Orev comes to Noach and says, Noach, who do you think you are? Hashem wrote in the Teva, you stay in the Teva until I tell you. Says Noach, I'm a Chacham. Rashi says Noach learned Torah. Otherwise, how did he know which animals were kosher? Yesh koyach biyad chachamim lakor davar min haTorah. And what Noach said, the Gemara says, the raven said, I don't want to go. It's too cold, it's too hot, I'm afraid. Noach said, you listen to the Chachamim, nothing bad will happen to you. The Yonah listened to the Chachamim, accepted the Torah Shabbat Peh. The Orev did not accept the Torah Shabbat Peh. How does the Orev rectify his sin? In the times of the Nevi'ei Habal, when Eliyahu Hanavi was actively violating the Torah, who goes to support him? The Orev, who made a big mistake the first time around, didn't listen to Noach. The Orev is now prepared to correct himself. That's how the Chassam Sofer understands this. But then he gets a little more graphic. Says the Chassam Sofer in another piece, that to what animal are Klal Yisrael compared to? The Yonah. Yonah si, Samo si. Yonah si b'chagvei hasela. We're compared to the Yonah. Why are Klal Yisrael compared to the Yonah? Says the Chassam Sofer that even though it would seem that the raven was right for not listening to Yonah, for not listening to Noach, even though it would seem Noach said you have to violate the Torah. The raven is right. No. Noach is a chacham. Yesh koyach biyad chachamim lakar davar natar. The chacham could come and say, violate the Torah. So if the Chumash says one thing, and the Talmidah, the genuine Talmidah chachamim of the generation, say something else, who do you listen to? Chachmei Yisrael. Why are Klal Yisrael compared to the Yonah? Because the Yonah was the first to show obedience to Torah Shabbal Peh. What is the Oirev? Says the Chassam Sofer. The Oirev is an api kairas. Look at the words of the Chassam Sofer. Look at number 19. Look on the fourth line. Kaimalon yesh koyach biyad chachamim lakar davar letzarchsha. The chachamim are given license to uproot as a temporary measure. Ulamigdar, and to make a fence. Umitzvah l'shmai lahem. Al kain Yonah shehi bechinas knesses Yisrael. Klal Yisrael are symbolized by the Yonah. Li Yonah imsala. Shama l'kol Noach. They listened to Noach. V'yatzusa kishashachar. And the Yonah listened. Masha ein kain ha'orev. So we think, if you don't listen to the Gedolei Yisrael, you're just not fulfilling some minor detail of Jewish law. No! He says, sometimes you know what the Oirev is? Ha'oirev, ha'api kairas. Lo shama l'kol Noach neged divrei Hashem. So that's very interesting. So then asks the Chassam Sofer, so why is the raven given permission to do this great mitzvah of feeding Eliyahu Navi in the end, in the times of the Nevi Abba? Well, God does not refrain from rewarding somebody for a good intention. The raven had good intentions. It thought it was doing the right thing by listening to what it said in the Chumash. So even though he's an api kairas, God still rewarded him for his small mitzvah. So it comes out according to the Chassam Sofer. What was Noach's motivation for sending out the Yonah? We're not sure. We don't know exactly. Maybe like Rabbi Yehuda Chassid said, he wanted to know how to ration the food. But what allowed him to send out the Yonah? What allowed him was this special ability that Hashem empowers the Chachmei Yisrael. It's called Yesh Koyach B'Chachmei Yisrael La'akar Davar Natar. Why didn't the raven listen? Because the raven is an api kairas. Chazal tell us, La'asid Lavai, in what zechus will Mashiach come? In what zechus will Mashiach come? It's a well-known medrash. Ein kol, look at number 20. Hagoliyos halalu miskansois ella b'schos mishnayos. Mashiach will come in the merit of Mishnah, not Chumash, not Nevi'im, not Torah Sheb'chsav, Torah Shabbal Peh. Where do we know this from? Gam ki yitznu b'goyim. If you fulfill yitznu among the goyim, ata akabtzem. Hashem says, I'll gather you up. It says, Amanas kahuna, yitnu is a lashon of Mishnah. In this chus of Torah Shabbal Peh, Geula will come. It says Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, one of the most spectacular gematrios I've ever heard in my life. Tziyon b'mishpat tipadeh v'shaveha b'tzedakah. Right? You know those words? Tziyon b'mishpat tipadeh. Zion will be redeemed with charity, with justice. V'shaveha b'tzedakah, those who return to her through righteousness. Right? Isaiah 127. Right? Everybody knows the pasuk in Yeshaya. Tzion b'mishpat tipadeh v'shaveha b'tzedakah. Tzion b'mishpat tipadeh b'gematria Talmud Yerushalmi v'shaveha b'tzedakah Talmud Bavli. Tzion b'mishpat tipadeh Talmud Yerushalmi v'shaveha b'tzedakah Talmud Bavli. Says the Sefer Shvilei Pinchas. Ata takum terachem tzion kiyes lechanina kiva mayed. Right? We all know that pasuk. We say, Rebbeinu Shem, get up, have rachmanis on Yerushalayim. The time has come. Ata takum terachem is gematria Talmud Bavli, Talmud Yerushalmi. Terachem tzion kiyes lechanina kiva mayed, also the gematria Talmud Bavli, Talmud Yerushalmi. So we know what has to be done for Geula to come. The observance of the Torah Shabbal Peh, the oral law. The oral law. In fact, we know the 3 weeks, that's the period of tragedy that we mourn the Churban. How many hours in the 3 weeks? How many hours in the 3 weeks? 528, corresponding to the 528 prakim in Mishnah. Because what's holding up Geula is the observance, the obedience, the subservience to the Torah Shabbat. Ein hagolios miskansos ela b'schus haMishnah. We know Rabbi say, okay, this is just like a little Kabbalistic digression. Okay, we're just going to say the words. If you have any questions, you could see your local Kabbalist. Okay, we're just going to say the concepts here. We know we have 7 great progenitors: Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, Aaron, Yosef, David. Right? The Ushpizin. Where Yosef is exactly, it's machlokes, depends on the Gersais. The 7 Rayim, the 7 Ushpizin, all symbolize different midos of Hashem, of the 7 spheros, right? That are alluded to in the pasuk L'chashem HaGedula, V'Gevura, V'Tiferes, right? Gedula, Chesed is Avram, Gevura, Din is Yitzchak, Tiferes is the confluence of the two, is Yaakov, the Hanetzach, the Hoid, Moshe and Aaron, Yesod is Yosef, and Malchus is who? David, of course. Malchus is David. Malchus is David. By the way, Malchus has another meaning in the Zohar. Malchus in the Zohar is also called Torah Sheba'al Peh. It's well known in many places. Malchus, the 7th Midah, the Midah of David, Malchus, right? Abraham is Chesed, Yitzchak is Gevura, Yaakov is Tiferes. David, Malchus, kingdom, is called Torah Sheba'al Peh. David is Torah Sheba'al Peh. In fact, the Zohar says explicitly, if you want to see it inside, the Zohar says in number 26, in Chelek Gimel, the Zohar says, David the Achid the Basraisa the EU Torah Sheba'al Peh. David clings to Torah Sheba'al Peh. In fact, the Medrash goes so far as to say that David embodied, personified Torah Sheba'al Peh to such a great extent that if you would look at David HaMelech, you would remember Shas. Can you imagine that? Imagine if you had a Rebbe, you didn't even have to listen to the Shiur. You could just look at him. You look at him, you eat the pizza, you go to sleep, and you're good to go. Right? Sounds like a good deal. David HaMelech, says the Medrash, Kol haroyehu nizkar l'Talmud. You look at David, you remembered your Talmud. And then Yaakov explains that David HaMelech personified Torah Sheba'al Peh. Like the Zohar says, he was Achid b'Basraisa. He is Midah of Malchus is Torah Sheba'al Peh. You looked at him, it was like he radiated Torah Sheba'al Peh. So what's holding up, what the Mashiach is contingent upon, is the observance, the subservience to Torah Sheba'al Peh. That's the midah of David. David is Malchus, Torah Sheba'al Peh. And therefore, suggests the Sefer Shvilei Pinchas that the Yonah, who symbolizes, like the Chassam Sofer says, the Yonah was the first individual to show emunah in the greatest fashion to the Chachmei Yisrael, to the Torah Sheba'al Peh. Hashem said, don't go. The Erev said, show me in my Chumash, show me in the Bible where it says I'm allowed to leave the Teva. The Erev was an Apikoros. She's an Apikoros. The Yonah represents the observance, the subservience to Torah Sheba'al Peh. That is why Klal Yisrael is symbolized by the Yonah. Therefore, the Rebbe Shalom says, Yonah, you show the world what it means to listen to the Chachmei Yisrael. Your job is, when Mashiach comes, you're going to crown the Mashiach. Because what Mashiach is dependent on is ein hagolios miskansoins ela b'schus Torah Sheba'al Peh. That is the suggestion of the Sefer Shvilei Pinchas. So if you walk out of the room tonight and someone stops you on the street and he asks, what's pshat in the Zohar? Why does the Zohar say that the dove is hiding in some who knows where, holding on to the crown of Mashiach, waiting for Mashiach to come? Why is the dove going to crown Mashiach? So you say, oh, it's good that you're asking. I just heard the reason is Because what's holding up Mashiach is not the observance of what it says in the Torah. It's the obedience to the Chachmei Yisrael. That is why Rav Dessler writes that in the times of Mordechai and Esther, they decreed that you should fast on Pesach. Right? When Haman made a decree to Kilkai, they decreed that they should fast on Pesach. Fast on Pesach? The decree's not going into effect for another year. Why fast on Pesach? It's the one day in the year you're not on a fast. It's the one day in the year you have to eat. So you can't wait 3 days. You can't wait 1 day, fast on Chol Hamoed, fast after Pesach. No, the Chachamim have to say, oh, you know when we should fast? The one day we're not allowed to. Says Rav Dessler, what Aveira did they do? They went to the party. What's wrong with going to the party? Everything was kosher. You know what's wrong? Mordechai said not to go. That's what's wrong. Yeah, but show me in the Chumash where it says, I'm not allowed to look at this, I'm not allowed to watch this. Where it doesn't say in my Chumash, it's not even in the stone commentary. Yeah, but Mordechai is a guy, he told you not to do it. So you want to rectify that? The rectification is not, no, now I'm going to open up my Chumash and learn more. The rectification is when Mordechai tells you something that you think doesn't make sense because the Chumash says you're not allowed to do it, that's when you have to, that's how you listen to him. When the Chachmei Yisrael tell you what you don't understand. So they bedafka told Klal Yisrael to do that which went keneged their seicha. Okay, that's his explanation. But that is why the Yonah, which represents, according to Chassam Sofer, the obedience to the Chachmei Yisrael, the Yonah is entrusted with the sacred mission of crowning Mashiach. And that perhaps is why on Shabbos we sing in Zmiros that while the Torah says V'lai matzah right? V'lai matzah Yonah manach l'kaf ragla. What do we sing? Yonah matzah v'lai manach. The dove found rest. Why did the dove find rest on Shabbos? Because of course you're familiar with the fact that in the Zohar, the seventh midah of Hashem, which is what? Malchus, and which is also called Torah Sheba'al Peh, has a third name, Shabbos. We once gave a shiur on this on Friday night last year, right, when we had an Oneg Shabbos. That Shabbos is another name for Malchus. That's why Shabbos is called Shabbos Malkusa. That is why Shabbos, we say, L'chadoidi, the Kras Kaf. That's why on Shabbos is the day of Torah Sheba'al Peh. Shabbos is Malchus, the seventh day, the seventh midah, the midah of Torah Sheba'al Peh. On the day of Shabbos, when the Torah Sheba'al Peh shines, the Yonah has found rest. So it says the Zohar HaKadosh that when the pasuk first says V'lai matzah Yonah manayach, that's talking about during the Galus. During the Galus, people are very incredulous. People are very skeptical about the Chachmei Yisrael. But so long as that exists, V'lai matzah Yonah manayach l'kaf ragla. But on Shabbos, when the Yom HaShvi'i comes, Vayichu HaShamayim Ha'aretz, when the seventh day comes, when the Elef HaShvi'i comes in, and it's the Yemais HaMashiach, and Ein HaGolios Miskantzos El B'Schus HaMishnah, comes the Yonah with the Zayas. Says the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, the Zayas represents Torah Sheba'al Peh. Zayas. Like it says in Tetzaver, V'yikchu Eilecha Shemen Zayazach. Shemen Zayazach is the Torah Sheba'al Peh. That will be ushering in the time of Mashiach. Then the Yonah will find respite and rest for his weary self, and the Yonah will be entrusted with the mission of crowning Mashiach. We should be zaycha to see him here. Amen.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.